Happy Stupidity Sunday. Oh, I'm sorry. It's called Selection Sunday. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. These are snap judgments. Selection Sunday, because the College Football Playoff Selection Committee just absolutely continues to crush the game. I know it's a hard job, Bill, but it's not impossible. I'm so confused.
It is a hard job. Well, here's the thing. They did what they said they were going to do. I didn't believe them when they said it, but then they did it. So, I'm actually not that mad about it. Part of me wants to applaud them for saying they were going to do a thing and then actually doing it, because that's never been the case of the College Football Playoff Committee. But they did say last week that they weren't going to move teams a whole lot based off conference championship games, and the ones that mattered to Ohio State were pretty competitive. So Ohio State ended up as the 8th seed playing Tennessee. So does it make sense that it's behind Penn State? No, but I think Ohio State also assumed that's where it was going to be last week when the rankings were what they were.
Sure, once Ward Manuel, the AD of Michigan, gets to choose your path, then then you are going to get screwed.
Don't do that.
Okay, I'm just kidding. Ward Manuel did a fine job, I'm sure.
You're kind of kidding.
Sort of kidding. But no, Ohio State put themselves in this position. It sucks. They should not have put themselves in this position. They know that they had an opportunity to avoid it. But the way I see it is, in the future, they may as well just give the SEC participants and the Big Ten participants all 4 first-round buys and just go from there, because that's clearly what they wanted to do.
Very well may be what they do.
That's clearly what they wanted to do this year, and then they were forced to put Arizona State and Boise State in there instead. So let's just, kill the shenanigans from here on moving forward and just say that's what happens. The top 2 in the Big Ten and the SEC get buys, and everyone else can fight for the other 8, because that's kind of how it felt, and they were backdoored into forcing themselves to put these other teams in the spots. And I mean, Clemson getting it at 12 makes sense, I guess. SMU just lost to them last night, however, and Clemson is one spot below them.
So it doesn't matter what happens on the field?
So, this is the point. It either matters what happens on the field or it doesn't. And I think that they proved today that it doesn't.
Yeah, we don't have to belabor the selection process.
The one thing for sure, Ryan Day and the Buckeyes didn't seem surprised by it, as you alluded to.
I liked his answer. He said if they were upset, they could have won the Big Ten.
Yeah. So that is the answer.
And that part is true. You can avoid the College Football Playoff Selection Committee or Ward Manuel or anybody else impacting your fate if you win the game. Ohio State didn't do that against Michigan. We all know that. So they left it up to chance, and it would have been easier for them if they didn't. But this is the path they have now. I think it's clearly the most difficult path of anyone in the College Football Playoff. They will start with a primetime ESPN delivering, saving. You get a little primetime banger.
Sticking it right to Fox.
They're bringing a 8 p.m. kickoff on December 21st. That is against the 9 seed Tennessee. After that would be the path with the number 1 team, the number 1 seed, the undefeated Oregon Ducks and the Big Ten champions in the Rose Bowl. That's getting ahead of things a little bit. Bill, what was the first thing you thought about with this matchup with Tennessee, and why is it the offensive line against Tennessee's defensive line?
Yeah, that's the on the field thing. I think honestly the first thing was this is what this is about. This is what the 12-team playoff is about. You're going to play games on campus. I know Ohio State would have preferred to not be playing because they prefer to have a bye, right? But if they're going to have to play, the biggest brand in the Big Ten, maybe in college football, is now going to host an SEC team for the first playoff game in Ohio Stadium, and I think it's awesome. I get people are still getting over the Michigan loss, and if you're not, I'm not telling you should be. But that's the first thing that I thought of was sort of the history of this moment and what it means for college football, and the fact that we get two of the more well-known teams in the sport playing in the shoe on a Saturday night is pretty damn cool.
Yeah,
it's going to be pretty damn cool. Early weather forecasts say high of 42 degrees.
No, he's going right to
high
the weather.
High of 42 degrees on December 21st is what it says. Low in the mid-20s. So if you're talking 8 o'clock kickoff, it's probably going to be below freezing.
Wasn't Tennessee the team that was complaining about it being 55 degrees and their heaters weren't working?
They were. Yeah. So you're talking probably sub-freezing temperatures at kickoff, which, hey, that's what you want. As long as it's not wet, who cares?
Also, if you're Ohio State, a little gamesmanship, maybe the benches don't work that day.
Oops. As far as the on-the-field matchup, Bill, I'd like your opinion on this. I think that the defensive line matchup for Tennessee is similar more to Penn State as opposed to Michigan or Oregon, right? Tennessee has very good edge rushers, including maybe a top 5 pick in the draft in James Pierce.
Yeah.
But not really. They're not the stout team up the middle that Michigan and Oregon are. So when you start to break down the matchup, I think it actually is one that Ohio State's more suited to combat. Do you disagree or agree with that assertion?
I have not watched a ton of Tennessee, but that would be my first blush impression too. And I think you'd be right. You're worried now about Ohio State interior offensive line, potentially a reworked one, and how that's going to handle like really good tackles. That's all of Tennessee's defensive line is good, but it's definitely more edge oriented. I think more like at Penn State, to your point. And I was glad to hear from Ryan Day on what's today, Sunday, that Donovan Jackson's probably going to stay put at tackle, because that, and all the talk of the offensive line shuffle, that was the thing that worried me the most, because it just didn't make any sense to me. So if you're going to have him there, I think Josh Fryer's played pretty well this year. Like, those are your two most reliable offensive linemen at the moment, and they will be going up against the strength of Tennessee's defense.
Yeah, they're built more to rush the passer. That's sort of the design for Tennessee, that their offense is going to play up tempo. They think that they're going to score a lot of points, so they are anticipating that their opponents are
Which
throwing.
is weird. They went 3 straight games this year without scoring in the first half.
Well,
I hope that
the thing is, this is not a very good version of Tennessee compared to what Josh Heupel was previously built. Like, I mean, they are one of the better teams in the country. They earned a spot in the playoff. They weren't just
they're like a power run game, though.
Yeah, but I mean, that's sort of in their grand design and recruiting and the way that they're acquiring talent. They think that they're going to be in pass rushing situations, and so their ends are more productive generally than their tackles. So I would think that assessment, your assessment, Berm, is correct.
I think that plays into an Ohio State, not a strength, but it's certainly not quite the potentially devastating defensive line matchup that we saw 2 weeks ago or a week ago, or however long ago that nightmare was in Ohio State.
Yeah, it was actually 8 days ago, right?
Wow, gosh.
8 days ago. Time flies when you're not having fun. The team back together. They've already practiced twice. They have this target, as Ryan Day said. Like, it's going to be interesting, I think, because we still don't have a clear grasp on the mood of the team. Mylan Graham is out on a Sunday afternoon catching footballs by himself again, just as he was on Wednesday. But we haven't seen the team around a ton. Saw Denzel Burt coming into the facility also on Sunday afternoon to get in some extra work. The team was together in the players' lounge to watch together at noon, and then it sort of dispersed. But so we don't know really, aside from Ryan Day, like how they are embracing this next challenge and how quickly they've been able to move on, or if they've moved on from Michigan, which again, I think it's going to be different from every single person, for every single person. Like, it's not a one-size-fits-all deal, and it may take another few days or another practice.
But Ryan Day seemed pretty intent on trying to deliver the message that it's time to move on from that game. Maybe he has, maybe other people haven't. He said over and over, we're done. It doesn't matter as far as what comes next.
Yeah.
And I think that's the approach you have to take. I'm not sure that approach is, I don't know if it's actually real, because I think that's a game that leaves a scar on you for a lot longer than 6 days or 7 days or 8 days. But that is what you have to do. If you're thinking about Tennessee, worried about Michigan, that's a good way to get yourself beat before you even line up.
Yeah, I think it's move on from the emotion of it, right? But not
the lessons.
Not the lessons. Like, commit to memory the things that you came up, areas where you came up short. That starts first and foremost on offense, right? And I thought the conversation about Ohio State's offense in this moment compared to the Ohio State defense coming out of the Oregon game, and Ryan Day made that comparison. I don't think that was actually given to him in a question. I thought that was fairly interesting in how they're going to approach things here. Like, you can use what happened 8 days ago to fuel you in this game. You just can't be consumed by
better.
You can't. Yeah, you should, right? You just can't let whatever the hell Kirk Herbstreit said about they would rather play on the road because the fans might boo. It's preposterous. But I understand the sentiment because these fans want to see this team take that next step, and if they encounter some adverse moments early against Tennessee, how the team will handle that coming off of the game they just played in the shoe. I think that's probably worth chewing on a little bit. I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine that the energy is pretty good now that they know who they're playing. They know they're going to be at home. They know that it's an SEC team. It's a pretty big spot for Ohio State to kind of show what it's made of. And Ryan Day certainly seemed excited by it, but I would take from that the team is too.
This won't be, if that happens on the 21st, it won't be the first time that any of these Ohio State players have seen adversity, whether that's the duration of their career or just experience it for the first time, whether that's not just Oregon, it's not just losing to Michigan, it's being on the road and trailing against Penn State. It's been in sloppy halves and having to adjust at halftime against Iowa or pulling away late against Indiana. None of that stuff is really new. And I feel like 8 days removed, I have a little bit better appreciation for Ohio State's entire body of work. It's so, you've called it for me, the fog of war, evaluating that game and getting so wrapped up in Michigan. I think this path is difficult, but I think Ohio State could beat everyone who is in front of them, starting with Tennessee. And it was put into focus, like I'm watching championship games on Saturday with Allie, and she's like, what if they didn't call the pass interference on Jeremiah Smith, or they made one field goal against Michigan? Like this, it's not like this team is incapable or broken or damaged, or like they're still one of the best teams in the sport, which is why I thought they wouldn't be the 8, but that's just my opinion.
It's very clear, and I talked about this, I think, at the Roosters last week. I never know when I say things. Everyone's pretty much average in college football. Like, there's not really a team.
Catch the fever.
There's not really a team you watch. You're like, wow, that team is unbeatable. Like, I watched Oregon on Saturday night look pretty pedestrian on defense.
They got pushed around.
Penn State had 300 yards rushing. Mm-hmm. Okay, like, there's no one that is unbeatable, and certainly Ohio State isn't unbeatable, as they've proven, but they can play with anyone in the country. And I think it all comes down to the guy we just heard from for an hour. Like, he said repeatedly at his press conference on Sunday, whatever it takes, we're going to, I sure the hell hope so.
Yeah.
Because the last time,
not really another option.
The last time we saw whatever it takes Ryan Day was the best loss of his career, right? That was the Georgia game 2 years ago. Like, we saw what cut it loose and let it all hang out Ryan Day look like again. And we've been waiting since 2019 for that, or the 2020 Clemson game. So if this is like every 2 years it pops up, well, now's the time to pop up, because not just is his entire legacy on the line as a coach, but I mean, it's potentially his job is on the line as a coach. So like, you better be able to bring the best out of everyone this week. And my frustration is watching all those games on Saturday, and you saw, and this is a point I've made repeatedly this year, the Ohio State offense's refusal to stress their opponents. They just do not put the defense in uncomfortable positions. And watching Tennessee, or watching Texas and Georgia even, like constant motion, constant doing all this other stuff, watching Oregon, Penn State, like what? Ohio State has way better weapons than these teams. I love Tyler Warren at Penn State, okay? Great player. Have you ever watched him play? He's like, he just jogs around the field, and yet they're like, chuck it up to him. And then he makes a remarkable catch. But you watch him play, and you're like, does he run faster than that ever? Because it looks like he's just lackadaisical, but they find ways, and Ohio State has the weapons to do it. So, like, if that Ryan Day shows up, 100% Ohio State can win the national championship. 100% there's nobody in this field that they can't beat. But I think there's also a case to be made that if the team that showed up last Saturday showed up, there's no one in this field that they could beat.
Yeah, again,
forgettable by anyone, I think. Yeah.
To me, I think the distinction still has to be there. I don't feel different.
No offense, Tyler Warren. Sorry, I just want to throw that out.
Right now,
really great player, but just.
I don't feel different now than I did when we left the Horseshoe 8 days ago. Like, the team that showed up, I think did everything to win that game. So I think there's a clear distinction. If they played with the same urgency, intensity, physicality, aggression, which I think was good enough. I still believe that it was game plan specific. And if that's Ryan Day mentality specific, that's probably more where I'm at. Like, if that coach shows up that went into the Horseshoe for the game and that plan is out there, of course they can get beat by Tennessee. But if 2022, why you look scared berm Ryan Day rolls in, then Tennessee's going to get rolled. And that's the reason that Ohio State's a touchdown favorite already.
I agree with all of it. The only thing I'd offer as a counter argument, I guess, is that he had a month to prepare for Georgia. He had a month to prepare for Clemson in 2020. He has 2+ weeks.
Seems like 3 weeks.
They started looking at it last week, he said, which I figured they would, because it seemed pretty clear.
There were only 3 options.
Ohio State was going to end up playing one of 3 teams, right? So the plan has been percolating for a couple days now as we talk to you guys on a Sunday. But it is a different dynamic that, like, it's more like prepping for a team off a bye week, I guess. And Ohio State, I guess, hasn't always been great off of bye weeks, but under Ryan Day. But it's just a question of whether or not Ohio State can find its best form. Because if it does, it can win the national championship. And if you had no belief in Ohio State's ability to do that based off the last time we saw them, I wouldn't blame you. Yeah. I couldn't tell you right now how much belief I have in Ohio State to do that. But it's certainly possible that they find it, and if they do, then they become a very dangerous postseason team.
You go back to what you said at the start of this episode of Snap Judgments, is that you think about the correlation between the way he talked about the defense post-Oregon and the way he's talking about the offense now. But then we heard him in his press conference today talk about how slow they've been moving on offense. And he said it's been done that way on purpose for a number of reasons. I would love to hear one of them, but if that wholesale change to the offense involves, hey, let's actually just go a little faster, then fine, let's see it, because that is paramount against Tennessee. Like
that'll be a track meet if they do.
Yeah, sure would be.
Tennessee's going to go fast.
Yeah, but they can go fast all you want. Nico Iamaleava is not necessarily going to complete 50% of his passes, so you want them to go fast. This is a game where Ohio State, like Tennessee's strength is their run game with a really good, SEC leading rusher in the backfield, but they are not a team that like is efficient offensively. So like this is one of those games where Ohio State could maybe get 7-8 possessions in the first half and holy moly, can you imagine what that would do instead of having 3 possessions
What's
a half
that like?
like they've had for the last six weeks?
I don't even remember
I
that.
thought you weren't allowed to have more than 4.
Didn't they cap it?
Check the rule book.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that this
There were like
matchup.
25 possessions in the Big Ten championship.
I didn't recognize that version of Big Ten football.
This is a matchup. Yeah, the Ohio State path is difficult, but like this is a matchup that, if the right Ohio State team shows up, I think is a really good one for Ohio State.
Yeah.
We'll see. They know what it is now. Selection Sunday has come and gone. The Buckeyes wrapping up their Sunday preparation, getting ready to get back in the Woody for practice this week. They've got 12 days before a primetime kickoff in the Horseshoe against the mighty ones from Tennessee. Looking forward to that matchup. We're going to have full coverage, as we always will, over the next 2 weeks, getting ready for it with all the podcast dailies, Kings of the North, Kings of Columbus, snap judgments, whatever. We're going to be everywhere, Roosters, and we're going to get ready for this game because it's exciting. It's the first time it's ever happened. Tickets are going sale to the general public on Thursday, so you can look forward to that. They're going to start at $100, which
Pretty reasonable.
It's not bad, actually.
seems all right for a playoff game against an SEC
A
opponent.
historic playoff game. The first one in the history of Ohio State football on campus. Like, show up, be loud. Like, that's a cool opportunity. We've only covered this team for 10 years, and we get to do something that's never happened in this stadium in 125 years.
And it's going to be a very lovely 42 degrees.
Beautiful, balmy evening, 4 days before
I
Christmas.
bet it's not 42 at kickoff, but
Probably not.
Berm will be tracking that for you every
Don't
single
you
day
worry.
on the podcast.
Imagine
daily.
all the camouflage the Tennessee fans are going to be wearing. We're not even going to see Tennessee fans because they're all going to be in there in camo, bright orange camo.
I can assure you, Berm, the orange is very easy to see. You won't have any issue with that. 3,500 tickets for Tennessee fans that are happening to watch this. I don't know who's selling them, but they're going to be available to you soon. So check for that and then come back and watch all of the coverage right here on the podcast. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. These are Snap Judgments. See you tomorrow.